Hi physical science students, this is Mrs. Miller, and today what I want to do is just run through some acceleration problems because that seems to be throwing a few of you guys off. So I'm going to have two example problems. These are not from our unit, they are just from a worksheet that I had from when I taught face-to-face with this. But what I want to do with you guys is go through two scenarios. So our first one here, we say we have a roller coaster's velocity at the top of a hill is 10 meters per second. 2 seconds later, it reaches the bottom of the hill with a velocity of 26 meters per second. What is the acceleration of the coaster? So of course, what we want to do first is to identify the equation. So acceleration is equal to the final velocity minus the initial velocity. That's also the change in velocity is final minus initial all over time. What I like to do is I like to identify all of my variables off to the side so I can easily keep track of them. And then I know I am looking for acceleration, so I'm going to put a question mark there. From there, what I'm going to start doing is I'm going to identify things that I see in the scenario. So a roller coaster's velocity at the top of the hill is 10 meters per second. 2 seconds later, it reaches the bottom of the hill with a velocity of 26 meters per second. So now I need to start identifying what's V final, V initial, and time. Well, as I start going, I'm going to look, and the first thing that's listed is 10 meters per second. So that's how fast my roller coaster is going at the start, and that would be my initial velocity. Then it says 2 seconds later, so that's got to be my time. And then at the bottom of the hill, I was going 26 meters per second. So that's how you go when you outline your variables. So figure out what was the starting thing, what was the ending thing, what is the time, and you'll be able to get this. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to plug this information into my equation. So acceleration is equal to V final, which is 26.0 meters per second. Notice I keep a unit on everything. Minus my initial velocity, which is 10 meters per second, all over my time, which is 2 seconds. So then as I start to do that, 26 minus 10, of course, is 16 meters per second over 2 seconds. And then when I take that, 16 divided by 2 is 8 meters per second squared. So that's the proper unit that we're going to use on our acceleration is meters per second squared because we're taking meters per second divided by second. And then, so just be sure that you are keeping those variables. So I'll do another question for you together so we can understand this a little bit better. Here we have another problem. So this one is just number 8 from a worksheet. A car is traveling at 15 meters per second and it starts to decelerate or slow down steadily. It comes to a complete stop in 10 seconds. What is its acceleration? So again, acceleration is equal to final velocity minus initial velocity all over time or divided by time. So I'm going to go and I'm going to identify my variables again because I think that's the easiest way of going about this. I know I'm looking for acceleration, so that's my question mark. So my final velocity, what happened at the end? What was my car doing? Well, it was at a complete stop. If it's at a complete stop, that means it's 0 meters per second. So my initial velocity then, here I have 15 meters per second is what I was starting at. And my time that it took to slow down was 10 seconds. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to plug this in. So acceleration is equal to 0 meters per second minus 15 meters per second all over my time, which is 10 seconds. So then when I go and do that, 0 minus 15 is negative 15 meters per second all over 10 seconds. And then I plug that into my calculator and I end up with negative 1.5 meters per second squared. So you know it's going to be negative because you were decelerating, which is also another term for slowing down. So those are two examples of how to do some acceleration questions. If you have any other questions, let me know.